The Norfolk Tars baseball team was a minor league affiliate of the New York Yankees. And despite having outstanding support by the Norfolk black baseball fans, the Tars still had segregated seating along with no black players in 1953. However, with the help of local black journalist Cal Jacox, the Norfolk black baseball fans made a stand which improved the American society. Hello, my name is Walt Green and I will be narrating this film. This is part 5C, another special part, since Calvin Jacox was a special person. Newspapers have been in the United States since the late 1600s, and prior to 1827, the only time a black person's name was in the newspaper was for a crime or something derogatory. However, in 1827, on March the 16th, the Freedom's Journal, the nation's first black newspaper, was published in New York City by Samuel Cornish and John Russwurm. The paper served to counter racist commentary published in the mainstream press. The third paragraph reads, "We wish to plead our own cause. Too long, others have spoken for us. Too long has the public been deceived by misrepresentations in things which concern us dearly." Several years later, the North Star was founded by abolitionist Frederick Douglass. After the Civil War, the black press was essential in providing information to freed slaves who sought better lives. The newspaper was the primary means of information, since there was not any radio or television in those days. In the 20th century, several black newspapers, including the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier, were instrumental in shaping black society. The Defender's most successful campaign was the Great Migration Movement, which resulted in over 1.5 million Southern blacks migrating to the North. The Pittsburgh Courier once had the largest circulation in the country, and one of its most successful initiatives was the Double V campaign. With blacks fighting in a segregated military during World War II, the Courier was promoting two victories, one overseas against Germany and the other one at home against racism, including equal rights for blacks. The Double V campaign definitely helped because several years later, in 1948, the military integrated. Black newspapers were paramount in the civil rights movement. The Norfolk Journal and Guide had the fourth largest circulation in the country, led by editor P.B. Young. In 1949, they hired a journalist from Norfolk, Calvin Jacox, who had turned down offers from the other leading black newspapers. Now, let's meet Calvin Jacox. Calvin, aka Cal, graduated from Norfolk's Booker T. Washington High School in 1941. Then, after a brief stint with the military, Cal finished the 2-year Norfolk Division of Virginia State in 1946. Cal was the editor-in-chief of the school's newspaper, the Trojan Echo, and was accepted to Lincoln University's prestigious journalism school, where he received his degree in 1948. With the top black newspapers bidding for his talent, Cal selected his hometown paper, the Journal and Guide, who hired him as a general reporter. His first article appeared in the Christmas Day 1948 issue and examined how the Norfolk postal workers skillfully handled the Christmas rush. The next month, he moved to the sports department, where he became a legend. On January 8, 1949, Cal wrote his first column, From the Press Box, replacing sports editor Lynn Holloway, who was now the managing editor of the paper. Cal's first column mentioned how several black football players had just played in bowl games on integrated teams without any friction. Remember, this was 1949, during the Jim Crow era. The article also mentioned how the Dodgers baseball organization now had 6 blacks in their system. Cal Jacox's first column left no doubt that he would be an advocate for integration in sports, along with advocating for equal rights for blacks. Cal was the oldest of 3 boys, with Shelton, a musician, the youngest, and Milton Sr., an athlete, the middle child.
My name is Milton L. Jacox Jr. Cal Jacox was my father's older brother. He admired him. My father looked up to Cal. Cal was a very influential role model for him. He taught him the importance of gaining knowledge, being well-read, being educated, both formal and informal education. From both of them, I learned that with knowledge, you have no fear.
Milton Sr. was the quarterback for the Norfolk division of Virginia State's football team, and said his brother Cal always read a lot and kept a book in his back pocket. Also, like their father Moses, he loved words and putting words to good use.
It was the influence of his words, whether it was written or spoken, that one received from Cal that made the difference.
That is a fact. My dad said everyone had big respect for Cal, and having him put your name in the newspaper was considered the ultimate honor. Dad said that was a memorable day when Cal put his name and picture in the Journal and Guide. I met Cal Jacox a couple of times, but his brother, Milt Sr., and his nephew, Milt Jr., I've known them my entire life. We grew up in the same neighborhood. Milt and I was teammates on 2 championship track teams while at Norfolk High School. Also, Milt Jr. was an excellent football player like his dad and a member of 3 championship teams at Norfolk. Cal has met and interviewed almost every black sports icon from the late 1940s to the early 1970s, including covering Jackie Robinson, the first black Major League Baseball player, during spring training. Others included Bill Russell, Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to name a few.
In a 2006 article in the Virginia Pilot, Gary Rusager wrote, "Local athletes and fans often credit his weekly column from the press box," that was the title of it, "From the Press Box," with spearheading the Journal and Guide's attacks on racism and discrimination in the world of sports.
Cal's legendary column, From the Press Box, was located on the entire left-hand column of the sports page and divided into 3 paragraphs, with the second paragraph always headed From the Sidelines, while the third was headed Here and There. However, the first paragraph heading varied weekly, from Detour Ahead to Some Impertinent Questions. Each paragraph had 8 to 10 sports briefs, separated by ellipses. Therefore, each week you got a plethora of information about 25 to 30 topics. And this was some good, thorough, helpful information. Sometimes Cal would refer to himself in the third person as the box or this corner. The first paragraph, as you can tell by its various headings, included Cal's opinions on certain topics. For example, in 1955, he explained how Virginia racist law, which prohibited black and white boxers from fighting in the same ring, prevented the growth of boxing in the state. It would be another decade before Virginia had integrated boxing. The second paragraph, From the Sidelines, included different issues, like in the VIA, the league for the black high schools in Virginia. He reported that the VIA teams from the eastern part of the state received poor officiating when they traveled to play a team in the west. Basically, he was saying that they were tired of being cheated. He added that Booker T from Norfolk had not traveled west in over 10 years because of that reason. Cal concluded by saying this was a serious problem that the West and VIA officials need to investigate. 2 weeks later, he reported that he received a couple of letters from a coach and a principal who were offended by his comments and said they were one-sided. Cal responded that he was not trying to belittle anyone and did not have an axe to grind, but was concerned about the frequency of complaints and cancellation of games between the schools in the East and West. Lastly, he said even though his intentions were sound, the approach to the problem could have been different. This led to yearly officiating clinics and certifications. The box was well respected and like an arbitrator because it solved problems. The third paragraph, here and there, included statistical and other miscellaneous information, such as reporting on the black athletes when pro teams first started to integrate. Also in this paragraph was Cal's very popular The Crystal Ball, where he predicted college and high school football games.
Cal's nature was kind and respectful, friendly. It was easy for him to connect with people. He met them where they were, so to speak. He was wise like my grandfather, Moses Jacox, the broom closet philosopher. And he was always willing to share that wise word.
And his wise words are still being shared today through various books, including the 8th edition of Blackball, a Negro Leagues journal. Cal's from the Pressbar Archive is one of the best documentation of black sports at all levels during the Jim Crow era. The book's bibliography has so many Cal references, you could almost say he co-authored. Lastly, the editor's note says Cal may not have been as widely known as contemporary Sam Lacey and Wendell Smith, the two legendary Hall of Fame journalists, but Cal Jacox was a persistent, outspoken advocate of integration.
My father, again being very proud of Cal, would also share with me how Cal struggled in the environment he worked within.
Cal was not immune to racism in the Jim Crow South. To them, despite his credentials, he was just another nigger with a pencil and a notepad. Cal said when he covered the Piedmont League, none of the white reporters would sit next to him, and he always had an empty chair on both sides. However, Cal thrived in that racist environment, which motivated other blacks.
Cal set examples for others to persevere through the prejudice struggles they faced.
Cal Jacox was much more than a journalist, and another journalist, Dave Lewis, even suggested he was a crusader.
He instilled a great deal of pride throughout the black community in particular, because that was his audience.
Now, back to the Norfolk Tars baseball team. The minor league team played in the Piedmont League, which consisted of teams mostly from Virginia and North Carolina. The league had been around since 1920, but by 1953, the league only had 8 teams, including 3 in the Tidewater area. In addition to the Norfolk Tars, neighboring Portsmouth had the Merrimacks, and nearby Newport News had the Dodgers. Despite having a huge black Norfolk fan following, the Tars still did not have any black players by the year 1953, but even worse, they still had segregated seating and only one entrance for blacks. Then, to add insult to injury at Norfolk Myers Field, sometimes the black fans would not get in until the 4th inning because the line to their one entrance was so long, while the several entrances for the whites were empty. It gets worse than that. Once inside, they had to sit in the raggedy grandstand bleachers located near left field. Fed up with this second-class treatment by the Norfolk Tars, Cal Jacox encouraged the Norfolk black baseball fans to boycott their games and spend their money with either the Portsmouth Merrimacks or the Newport News Dodgers. Both of those teams had integrated seating along with black players. They treated them like first-class citizens and with respect. After the first month of the boycott, Cal reported the Tars' attendance was down by 2,000 people from the previous year, and he commended the Norfolk fans for not bowing down. The boycott worked, and the Norfolk Tars felt it where it hurts the most, at the box office.
Cal wrote week after week about the 1953 boycott by black fans of the Norfolk Tars minor league baseball team. Ultimately, the general manager of the Norfolk Tars relented and said, "Our eyes were opened."
Of course, their eyes were opened because the Norfolk Tars lost a lot of money while the other two local teams made money. Newport News attendance quadrupled from the previous year because of the support from the Norfolk fans. Similar boycotts were done that year in other southern minor league cities, and along with Cal leading the 1953 Norfolk Tars boycott, these movements helped to ignite more famous boycotts, which occurred in later years. In December 1953, the Tars were sold to Earl Harper, a local businessman. Being local was important because the Norfolk black fans' biggest gripe was the shabby treatment at the ballpark under the Yankees management. But Harper promised better conditions along with allowing black players to try out for the team. Moreover, he had a meeting with some of the black fans who told them they would not support the team if they kept those antiquated racist Jim Crow rules in effect. However, following the meeting, the Tars announced they were abolishing those antiquated racist Jim Crow rules, and black fans could enter any gate and could sit anywhere.
In April of 1954, when the Tars played the New York Yankees in the exhibition game, blacks and whites sat together, and Ed Andrews, the Tars' first black player, was the starting pitcher. So yes, it's documented that his contribution to civil rights was significant and in full effect, even in 1953. He was indeed a pioneer of journalism and justice.
Cal closed out a remarkable 25-year career at the Journal and Guide in 1973, then went to work at Norfolk State University as its sports information director, and later the communications director, where he retired in 1988. The HBCU Sports Information Director Award is named in Cal's honor.
I think Cal's biggest accomplishment was consistently serving the black community over such a long period of time, some 40 years.
While researching for this film, I read over 500 of Cal's columns, and I told Milt his uncle was 30 years ahead of his time.
However, rather than being considered ahead of his time, I believe Cal would simply say that he was part of the continuum of the struggle for equality for our people.
The pioneer and civil rights journalist Cal Jacox is inducted in several Hall of Fames, including the Hampton Roads African American Sports Hall of Fame, the CIAA Hall of Fame, the VIA Hall of Fame, and the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame.
I'm very proud to be the nephew of Calvin Moses Jacox. One of the first things I learned as a child from Cal was how to keep a baseball scorecard. Cal used to say you can't tell the players without a scorecard, and that's true in life. He taught me to pay attention to the news, to learn to distinguish propaganda from true journalism, and to be informed in truth and always strive for excellence. But I think the thing that sticks with me most that Cal taught me was to respect all men, to honor some, and to bow down to none.